Support for this podcast comes from the patrons at patreon.com/FMLFPL. Okay, welcome to FMLFPL Milan.
It's Walsh.
Let's just get this out of the way because X50 said, how do morning coffee Walsh's powers stack up against those of evening beer Walsh?
Never experienced it before, so you're about to find out.
It's a new world for all of us. New experience for everyone.
Yep. How are you doing, dude?
I'm good. I'm really good. I mean,
Cool.
FPL's keeping me very occupied mentally in a good way. I'm just like thinking, oh, I could do this. I could do, like the old feelings that I feel like we both used to have of like not even being on the website tinkering, but just thinking in my off time of like, you know, this guy might be good, you know, just like something to occupy the mind. How about you?
Yeah, same. Love this time of year. Excited to do this pod today. This is going to be a big one. The mid-price players always feel like a fun one to get into and analyze. So that's what's going on today.
It's the most tempting tier because they're all like potential 200-point players or disasters. Should we briefly mention just, you know, this is the time when everyone's signing up for Patreon. If you do the annual, you get 2 months for free. Most people, I mean, we got rid of the lower tier, so it's just the Discord is the cheapest tier, and that's also the best tier to just hang and chat, and people are up at literally 24/7 because it's, you know, Australians and Indians and UK people and Americans, whatever. And then also there's the Friday My Life tier, which is one above that, which is not in play yet, but once the season starts, we do an extra pod every week on Thursday nights. And yeah, so if you like the content, extra pod, good thing.
Yeah, the Discord's just always fun. A lot of good personalities in there. And when the season starts, it's a fun place to be during games, just shouting goals and talking about what everyone's seeing. It's just fun. So if you want more internet friends, you can get them there.
It's sort of like being on Twitter and Reddit, except you get all of the shitters and trolls and assholes filtered out of it because we'll just ban them if they're pieces of shit.
Yeah, has been done before.
It's been done before. It will be done again.
All right.
Let's go mid-price. So yeah, we're doing 5-0 keepers, 5 to 5-5 defenders, 7.5 to 9 million. Oh, oops, I skipped mids. What's the mids again?
7 to 8.5 mids.
7 to 8.5 mids, 7 to Bowen mids, basically. And 7.5 to 9 forwards.
Yeah.
So let's start at the back, right?
There are a lot of 5 million goalies in the game this year. You know, there are some names here that are definitely intriguing. Rammers, Emmy at Villa, Mendy, who's the highest owned right now. 5 at Chelsea. Schmeichel, we don't have to talk about him. De Gea, probably don't have to talk about him. Pope, 5, interesting.
Pope's very interesting.
Sa at 5, you know, Flappy Hands at 5 over at Western. Just a lot of names. So what do you see in this region?
I mean, I think we should start with Mendy because, as you mentioned, he's just the highest owned in the game, not just at this price point. So Tio said, is Mendy the obvious best keeper pick to start with game week 1? Hemdog said, is Mendy worth the 0.5 extra or is he template trash? I'm currently on Mendy. I feel like the late riser talk, the fireside, like he's sort of like honed in my focus a bit more from where I was prior to that talk. And I don't know, with keeper, I'm just like, I just don't care that much. And if, you know, 26% of the market is on Mendy, I think he's a fine pick. I actually don't love the pick, but it's fine and it's keeper and the point spread isn't that wide in keepers to begin with, so I'm just on him for now and like sort of feel whatever about it. He has kind of a low ceiling in like the Ederson mold of like, even if he gets 20 cleans, we're probably looking at 150 to 160. He's not going to be like a save bonus guy. He got 3 bonus points last season in 3,000 minutes. But, you know, at the same time, Chelsea do have the potential of 20 cleans where no one else in this tier really does.
I like the comp to Ederson a lot. You know, I mean, he's the type of player that's not going to get bonus points unless if he has some outrageous, huge save game on a clean. A lot of their defenders get a lot of baseline bonus for pass percent shit, all that stuff. So he usually ends up on short end of the stick there. So he's more probably a 2 or a 6er guy, sort of. I mean, a little bit more saves than Ederson, but I mean, really not much.
Not much.
I think, his ceiling is definitely capped, like you said. It is one of those where getting a share of the Chelsea clean here feels good. But, it is also another thing, talking about more macro goalkeeping position, it is a really low point total position. So if you're able to save 0.5, even though, it's not much to go up to, Alisson, Lloris, Ederson, it is something. Are you really going to be losing that much, especially when we're going to be wildcarding early? If you're looking at, okay, this is the guy I'm going to have for 6, 7, 8 weeks, maybe when your team value is higher and things become clear, it's like, okay, well, I can't afford this now. And there are these enablers now. And that could be something you kind of back into, maybe going to a 5-5 keeper if you're not too inclined to spend that much initially. It's as safe as it comes with Mendy, I think, even though we did talk and are continuing to talk about the Chelsea defense. They got Koulibaly in, they're starting to make some signings there, but they're still an elite team with an elite squad, and they're going to be the better team most days. Yeah, good coach. Now, their opening fixtures are a little bit tricky just because their easy ones are away, so they don't really have any bankers. I mean, their first 3 homes are Spurs, Leicester, West Ham. Could see no clean in all of those. And there are aways, Everton, Leeds, Southampton. The first 3, I mean, those are in alternating away, home. They could keep cleans in all of those, but they're still away games. So, they're not the easiest. So, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, it's the type of thing where I feel like as we get closer to game week 1, I'll probably see this as a place where I can comfortably sacrifice 0.5 to go to a 4-5. Like you said, it's the lowest scoring position. The gap is the smallest from, the most expensive premium guys to the budget guys in terms of total points. And it's short. I think that's really important. Like, not having that extra post World Cup wild card is huge because, okay, you might pick a bad 4-5 and he keeps 1 clean and 6 and everyone has Mendy or whatever. You're just going to get Mendy. Like, it's not that big a deal. And Bry's question was, this price bracket usually disappoints in keepers and defense. Why should we be looking here at all? And I think it's a relevant question because, there's always 4-5s that are going to score in and around where the 5s and the 5-5 score. It's just like whether you get on them or not, basically.
Yeah. And also, is the upgrade in the other spot that you're putting this money significant enough?
Yes,
like, if you're going like Neto to Rash with that extra $1 million, it's like, well, they both are punts and have a lot of problems. So, that's something to also consider here. But that's Mendy. I think we could box him. Ramsdale, I'd like to talk a little bit about Arsenal defense just with this outcoming information about, all of the players still injured. Tommy still, I guess like having 8 months off wasn't enough to heal his like calf or whatever, like fucking injured
he's just like,
who knows?
He's Nathan Ferguson in disguise. Like yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. Like
it's ridiculous.
Everyone was shitting on my last draft that I posted on like TikTok and shit because I had double Arsenal at the back. My logic was good and I supported it with numbers where basically when Arsenal were fit with the back 4, Ramsdale, Partey, they were an elite defense in terms of clean sheets. Like they were really, really fucking good. And then obviously everyone's still hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm quickly off of my double Arsenal at the back.
Yeah. It's just, we have Tierney's injured again and, everything just looks a little bit problematic. They have Saliba in, but if they're not fit, there's just no point really going there, I think. So that's unfortunate because, they were keeping cleans in like a 1 in 2 clip when they were fit, like you're saying.
Yeah, it was an elite level.
Yeah.
And, Zinchenko should be in for Tierney, so maybe that's not as big a deal as like Tavares playing every minute because that was bad. But, without Tomiyasu, it still probably means Cedric or it means Ben White at right back. And I like Ben White, but I don't really like him at right back. And it's just like a domino effect of like lowering the quality. Yeah, you have to squint to make it work, sort of.
Yeah. And then, Emmy is a little bit interesting just because getting Diego Carlos in and getting in Kamara in, shores up a lot of the issues that they had last year.
Big time.
I think that the big issue is, to me, looking at him and projecting into the future, is when he was a monster 2 years ago, he was just getting 3 bonus points every game. Like, he was not only making saves. Not only was he in a position based on the structure and the system to make a lot of saves, but he had 27 bonus points, fucking unheard of for a goalkeeper. I mean, he almost hit 200 points that season. I mean, I think we have to kind of remove that from our thought process looking at them this year, because that's not going to happen again. But is he capable of, making a lot of saves and also in and around bonus points in this system with 4 at the back? It's possible. We just don't know. So, you're betting on a lot of uncertainty here, which doesn't feel too good, but I get it. I mean, if you want to get someone just kind of out there and this is a place you want to take a punt and gamble on some high upside spikes, he's certainly the player that could do it with, some pretty somewhat decent opening fixtures: Bournemouth, Everton, Palace, West Ham first 4. They have a tough run, game week 5, 6, 7. They have Arsenal, City, Leicester, but we are looking at a short window. We're going to probably wild card pretty early here with all of this shit going on, but I kind of like that. Kind of like that punt if you're just looking to take one, right?
Everyone's sort of interested, us included, in like Dean and Cash. 5 feels like a good price. Gerrard made the defense a lot better when he came in. But yeah, like you said, and I was going to point out the same thing, it's like the result of a defense getting better is less shots conceded, less saves to make, less bonus opportunities for the keeper. So it's like a weird one where that one monster season was almost the perfect level of the defense, where they're going to concede a lot, but it put them in position to save a lot and get all the bonus. Whereas now they might be just a level past that defense and be like, okay, he's just a bad version of Mendy. Like, I could very easily see that. Just less cleans and no bonus.
Right. It's also tough with him looking at Villa and, Cash and Dean. I mean, I think they just got that left back or something. They rumored to be in for a left back. But
backup. They got him. Yeah.
Yeah. But like Cash and Dean at the same price with legitimate attacking intent, that also doesn't feel great. It's nicer when the goalkeeper's kind of cheapest route in or something like that. And you don't necessarily have that, even though they are kind of like tied, depending on who wins that 4 or 5.
It's kind of interesting to look at this tier and say, like, if they were all 4 or 5, or if any one individual of them is 4 or 5, would everyone be on them? Like in the case of Ramsdale, I think obviously yes. In the case of Emmy, probably. No. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of people would be on it, but not like he wouldn't have Mendy ownership, I don't think.
Wait, do you mean if just strictly the goalkeepers were 4 or 5?
Just Emmy was 4 or 5. Yeah, and everyone else is still 5.
Well, no one would own Raya, that's for sure.
That's for sure. He'd be the highest owned 4 or 5.
He'd be the owners.
Yeah. It's just interesting to sort of think in that way. And then I think the next most interesting guy is definitely Pope. I mean, it's really hard with Pope because
is he interesting?
It comes back around to the bonus points, right? Because at Burnley, again, monster, always got 20 bonus points, whether they got 10 cleans or 15 cleans, whatever, he got 20 bonus points. He was always good, and he was sometimes priced really high, wasn't he? I think he was 5 and 5.5.
He was 5.5, a lot, couple years.
And then Newcastle, way better team, better defense than Burnley. And they don't play in that Dyche style of like, we're happy to concede a lot of shots as long as there's like sort of bodies in the way and Pope's in position to make saves. So it's like, you look at Dubravka last season, okay, he played 2,000 minutes, he only got 9 bonus points. Does that mean that Newcastle aren't putting the keeper in position to get bones? Or is it a stylistic thing where Pope is much more, he kind of is sweeper-ish, right? Like, he'll come out and clear stuff. Like, is it Pope's style that also lends itself to more bones? Like, I don't really know.
I mean, I think just the sheer volume of saves that he made, coupled with how they never hit pass completion percentages because they're fucking Burnley,
they're bad.
Puts him in that bonus point monster kind of territory when he was with them. I just think at 5 million, looking at him compared to maybe like Emmy is an interesting comparison, but it's still hard for me to imagine that either are going to ever be better than Mendy, even though, even with Mendy not getting bonus. I mean, because Mendy's going to keep more cleans, and, they're going to have to outpace him with bonus points and save points, the cleans that they don't keep. I don't know. It could happen, obviously, but I think that's something that we need to really see, like, oh, wow, like, Pope every game is X, right? Getting 2 bonus points and a save point. Like he's outpacing the defenders, and that's huge, right? And we just don't know that yet.
Yeah, and I think broadly what I'm saying is I think he will not. Because I think that the Burnley system sort of inflates a keeper's point total. And if you just look at Newcastle's defense at the end of last season, right, there's obviously a couple outliers. When they played City, they conceded 9 shots on target. When they played Liverpool, they conceded 11 shots on target. Yeah. And Spurs, 6 shots on target. The other games in the end stretch are 4-2, 2-2, 2-2, 3-3. Like, that's bad.
And that's and what we need to know is like if he makes 3 saves and it's a low scoring clean, does he get bonus points or not?
Yeah, and I don't think so, again, because of what you highlighted, whereas like Burnley were the perfect team for a keeper because all their players suck and are bad on bones, whereas Newcastle is legit good players. They have some good players. So
yeah, okay,
yeah.
Any other 5s that are interesting to you right now?
Not really, to be honest.
Yeah, not really. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think these guys are relevant.
Yeah, I do want to just shout out the complete absurdity that they put Schmeichel in at 5 is another level to me. I don't understand any world of reason or rationale that you could possibly, in a million years, come up with that he's a 5 million keeper and not a 4-5 keeper. But
he's just famous. That's
famous.
The
he's
beginning
the club captain.
and
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, he has had a good season in the past. I mean, that's
the reason why it's so insane to me is just looking at him relative to the lesser defenders. They're all 4-5. It's like, are you kidding
ridiculous.
me?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
All right, so 5 million goalkeepers boxed.
I guess I was going to say the only other case I can make for a sort of interesting one would be Flappy Hands, only because they permanently signed Areola, and we kind of both think that Areola is just straight up a better keeper.
I don't kind of think that. I do think that. I thought that last year. I think
me
that
too.
now.
And Flappy will undoubtedly start the season as the keeper. I have no question. He's fucking old and he's declining. And Areola's 4-5. And so if Areola finds a way in, that's just something to watch. Where like Flappy could just be sent out to pastures, and Areola's like their keeper going forward. So
yeah,
that's just something to watch.
Yeah, it's clearly a matter of when, not if. I mean, he's going to be their keeper of the future. It's still, a little bit sketch to me. Grant, say he comes in at 4-5 in November, he's starting. They still have the Thursday shit. So, is that going to be enough of a detriment or a deterrent that he's not the best 4-5? I don't know. That's a problem for a future pod. But
yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely, the 5 million spot is definitely, Mendy being the highest owned, definitely a fine pick, but it makes sense. But we'll see.
Okay, there's so many defenders.
Yeah, not so many 5-5 defenders, but there are a lot of 5 defenders.
Yeah, what are there, like 3 5-5 defenders or something like that?
Yeah, well, they put Koulibaly in the game, so you have 3 Chelsea defenders at 5-5, him, Alonso, and Tilv. Thiago Silva, and then you have Stoney Boy, John Stones at City at 5-5, and then Perisic 5-5 at Spurs. So let's talk about Perisic. So he's in 40% of the teams right now.
That's fucking crazy. Let me get these questions out. Tia said, talk to me all things Spurs wing backs. There's the traditional ones and Conte monstrosities. Perry is hugely owned and clearly a great choice if he's starting every week and playing 60 plus, but I have a lot of fear and there's plenty of options elsewhere. Harley Boy said, Perisic ownership's insanely high, but reports are he hasn't practiced because of injury and Spurs still have a lot of wing back options if they don't want to rush him back. Does it make him a wait and see, or is he like a Holland where you don't want to start in the hole if you don't get him?
Yeah, I mean, and we don't have to just strictly talk about the 5-5s. I think it makes more sense to talk about like Spurs right now.
Yeah, let's just talk about Spurs.
Because they have a lot of 5 million defenders too.
Yeah, so Perisic is 5-5, but Doc, Dyer, Bavis, Romero, Royale, Longggg are all 5, and we don't know what Spence is going to be. Probably 5 also.
Probably 5, yeah. So yeah, what are you seeing with Perisic right now?
Yeah, I mean,
as we record this on the July 18th.
Yeah, and as of July 18th, got to timestamp it. He was the first person I put in my first draft. Like day one, I'm like, okay, Mo, Perisic, like Salaki, like these are guys I know I want. And then I've slowly taken him out for basically all the reasons that Tio and Harley Boys said. I mean, they literally have 3 wingbacks on both sides. Perisic is by far the oldest, and he's hurt. at the moment. And he's also the best, but does that just mean that he's going to play in the biggest fixtures? Like, does that mean they play him at Chelsea, at City in the first 7 game weeks and rotate in the worst guys and, for the Forests and the Southamptons? Because if that's the case, it's bad.
Yeah. I'm almost thinking the opposite because he's the best in terms of scoring goals because he's just a winger and I think Perisic is in the league right now by far the best goal scoring wingback. Period. I don't think it's
not
close.
Even an argument at all.
Yeah. So he's also not good at defense. I mean, he's not. Yeah,
he works hard, but
he works
he's
hard,
not
but he's not a defender. I mean, he's a winger. He played wing for his whole career basically until Conte got to Milan or whatever and turned him into a wingback. And he's thrived in that situation.
So you're thinking he might play in the easier games where they need less defending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that's the case, that's just a complete, throwing some concept out. Who knows? But that makes more sense to me than kind of what you're proposing of him playing in the tough fixtures because he's the better player. I think the main thing with Perisic, we know 5 subs. We know that he could get ripped off on 50 just because, we're cruising and it's just like whatever. I mean, we don't know anything until we start seeing the games. But obviously, if he's not fit, then he's not going to play. Yeah. I'm just looking at it like, there's still a few weeks to go. We don't really know. See. Like he could train tomorrow, and it's like, oh, he's fine. Whatever. Holland trained yesterday, and there's pictures. Yeah. It's like, okay, he's just fine right now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, he has just 15 pointers all over the place. Like he's got a goal scored. He could score 8 or so this season, and no one's going to be surprised in any small matter, shape, or form.
He's legitimately the most 2-footed player probably in the world. Also, so that helps. Like he can play either side, and he's a goal scoring threat from both sides.
Yeah. So I still think he's just a phenomenal option. I think he's an incredible player, and he's just so difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
He just gives them an extra dimension.
Weaned him off, but I could definitely see myself coming back in. If you said, he's training, he's playing, plays the preseason game, scores a goal, whatever, looks good. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's time. Yeah. And they have another thing that is, I think, very important to remember. I know we say it all the time, but I think people don't really internalize it. Is that early season there's way less rotation. There's a game a week. For the most part, game week 5, there's midweek games or some shit because the season is fucked up. But let's just say first 4, they play once a week. He is a fitness god. So if he's fit going into the season, once a week is a fucking piss take for him. He's probably going to run a marathon midweek just to get his balls tingling. And he could just start the first 4. No, they have no Europe. There's a week between every game. There's no problem. There's no need to rotate in fucking Sessegnon, who's not nearly as good a player.
Yeah, and they have an insanely good fixture run to start the season. Home Southampton, at Chelsea, home Wolves, at NFO, at Western, home Fulham.
I'm never going to get used to NFO, dude.
You're going to, because I'm going to be saying it a lot this year.
NFO.
But, that's 3 or 4 cleans. Should be 3 or 4 cleans. And, if he gets 1 or 2 goals, he's just going to be top 5 defender points.
Yeah, you're fucking right. I gotta get him back in there, but
it just seems like at 5'5", great pick. Still a great pick, right? The fitness is the concern. We just need to keep monitoring the news and watching that. So let's box Perisic there, and let's look at the rest of the defense because. And just like you said, right? Thinking about it long term, they have a lot of games this year. He could just be a nightmare. He might be starting he starts in the Champions League, doesn't start on the weekend, starts the next weekend, gets subbed early, doesn't start the next game, 50. Starts Champions League. That could be what happens because they have so many options. He has so many demands for those 2 positions that he's just stockpiling and he's just going to play whomever,
we don't know. We don't know. No one knows what Conte's brain is going, yeah.
I mean, the only thing we know is he finally is fucking Reguilon out to pasture and he's finally talking about Lukash as a wingback. So he's evolving. Things that we've been saying for
win
so long.
For Team FML and PL right there. Is
just things
Lukash.
We've been saying forever. But so that said, the Spurs team is really exciting from a clean sheet standpoint, I think.
They're
looking
just
at them,
really good defense.
They're just all of a sudden they're just stockpiling assets everywhere. I mean, Longggg could his deficiencies could really be hid well in a back 3. and, you know, Dyer's still there. Romero's fit right now. I mean, they just have a really solid defense, and they aren't going to have to play Højbjerg, you know, 5,000 minutes right now. They got Basuma in, you know, with Betancourt. I mean, they just have, you know, Scapino's back. They have so many options down the spine.
They just did a really good job spending money. Yeah.
They just have a really good spine with depth that, you know, they could just keep a lot of cleans. And I am not completely disinterested in these 5 million, you know, non-wingback assets. Like, you know, Romero at 5 could be a really good pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, you know, I mean, it's a little bit of one of those where, you know, what is the point ceiling? It probably isn't that high unless somehow he's some like Laporte level monster scoring, you know, 6 or so combined attacking returns. But, you know, early on when we don't have too much information, you know, spending 5 million on that pick could be just like a good place to start if Perisic isn't fit or you just need a 5 million guy. I think that they're interesting, and I'm seeing them in no teams.
Yeah, I don't really understand. It's actually, now that I think about it, like, and we'll talk more about more 5s and 5.5s, I feel like I see very few of anyone in this price bracket in any teams. Like, because I'm basically seeing like Reece, Trent, Cancelo on every team, and then people are usually going like maybe 1-4-5 and a 4-0 or 2 4-0s or something like that to try and like spend elsewhere on the pitch. I'm not really seeing much action at the 5-0 price, and yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think I've been saying it all season. I think they're the 3rd best team in the league. I think they're right on par defensively with Chelsea, you know, which means they have a ceiling of, I don't know, 20 cleans. You know, their floor is not nearly as high as Liverpool and Man City, but their ceiling is quite high. And yeah, I mean, I think they're just better all around. You know,
and I think comparing them to the Chelsea, like those Chelsea players are 5-5, and these are 5, right? Like Koulibaly and Tilv are 5-5. Like the like player on Spurs are 5. I mean, we're talking about them being equal, if not preferring Spurs from a, you know, standpoint today, looking at the season of clean sheet capabilities. I mean, that's price to buy. And, you know, I think too, right, you know, you're looking at a lot of 4 at the back teams with, you know, a punt in midfield, like in the Neto region, looking at the opening, you know, assuming that we're going to wild card relatively early, you know, game week 6 region by then, right? Comparing clean sheets from Spurs in the opening 6 to Neto attack, assists plus goals, like who's going to get more there? I think it's close, you know, if Neto is starting the season fit, because they also have a very good fixture run, you know, opening 6. But, you know, I think that's the kind of mental exercise that's worth doing. Yeah. And just looking at, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spurs are looking at probably 3 cleans in the first 6.
Yeah. I'd say that's a fair estimate. 3.
For five, that's better than any other 5 you can get.
Probably.
Like just straight up, that's, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, you have to throw this in with, well, okay, you're going to be really lucky to hit a goal, right, from that standpoint. Yeah. Versus, you know, we look at someone like Trips, who we'll get onto, right? Yeah. He could bang in a free kick any day, right? Any given game. And all of a sudden that's like, well, fuck your 3 cleans. Like he just got like 2 games it's worth like of points
Newcastle,
in 1 plus.
Their first 6, maybe you see 2 cleans, but he has an assist and a goal in the first 6.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially, you know, like that's almost the rate that he was running at. Like that's all of a sudden, that's more points. That's better.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got Spurs kind of tucked away there. Definitely some interesting names. Definitely something to consider.
And Trips, I think we've talked like enough about, right? I mean, or do you want to? Is there more that you want to say about him? I mean, I think he's just still amazing. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's interesting seeing like people looking at his like underlyings and saying like his NPXG, like whatever, all that shit is like not that good. You know, he played a few hundred minutes, first of all, and they're like, but you know, his XG numbers of his free kicks are compared to every other free kick taker in the world, and he's simply better than all of them, like mostly all of them.
JWP basically,
so,
and like Messi.
So I think that's something that, you know, for the stat heads is worth considering, that, okay, well, him taking a free kick in the same spot that Kane takes it in is like not the same.
Right.
You know, granted, they're not like high percentage chances. I mean, these aren't like tap ins or far posts like runs from crosses and open play kind of things, but he's still like the best at doing them. And, this is still a Newcastle team that, we're expecting to improve. I think, the City and Liverpool 2 in the first 5 is the main annoying thing. That, it's just, those are the two of the 4 worst fixtures of the season stacked both really, really soon in the season, which you just don't like to see. But yeah, Trips, I still like him as a pick for sure.
Yeah. And Target being the same price is just silly. So we don't need to really talk about that.
Yeah. Where do you want to go? Where else do you want to go in this 5 million?
I think City is kind of interesting, mainly because of Kyle Walker. But Al, Ray, Tio, all asking about Kyle. They said with Zinchenko on the way out, Cuckoo deal still in the early stages, is it worth punting on Kyle Walker early? And, I just said that the Spurs guys are probably better than all the 5-0s. Well, if Kyle Walker's just starts the first 6 games for City, then he's way better. Not even fucking close, because they could just keep 4 cleans, 5 cleans, like they're City, so it's just a different level. Where are you at on Kyle?
I've had Walker on my team for a while now. I kind of came to this like a week or so ago. Yeah, looking at the landscape of City's team right now. Knowing that the season's a couple weeks away, and knowing how complicated the system is if the Cucurella deal does come in. I just, again, right, remember back to last season and, knowing what we know of Walker, he's obviously old, but when he's fit, he's fit. And when they have 1 game a week, it's easy to keep him fit. And he played all the games last year at the beginning of the season. He kind of broke down and didn't really play. He could play a game a month, I think. Yeah. Once it hit December, January time when the pileup was happening, which obviously made him a non-option. But there was, the beginning of the season, he started all the games for the first few months. And, I can imagine that just happening again. He's still, when he played last season, looked just like he has all his whole career to me.
Yeah, he hasn't slowed down at all,
Yeah, he just doesn't have a lot of quality in the final third, and he also is that kind of tucking in player, allowing Cancelo to get forward when they have the ball in the other third player. He'll make an overlapping run once in a while, but we look at him and look at his returns, his last few seasons, they're just not really there from an attacking standpoint, but the clean sheets should just pile up. So if you're looking at, Laporte has more, it's kind of, oxymoronic to think of, but Laporte as a center back does have more attacking thret than 100%. Walker at right back. It's not really close there.
Walker is the sweeper. He's the sweeper. I guess you could say the stopper, and Ederson's the sweeper, whatever fucking semantics you want to get into. But yeah, he is still their best last line of defense by a lot. Yep. He lets them basically play with the back 2. They don't play with the back 3. They don't play with the back 4. It's a back 2, and then Kyle does all the other stuff. Whether it means he has to stick to some winger who's pacey and play more aggressively, he'll do that. Whether it means, both center backs are in the attacking half and Kyle is just don't let anyone get behind you guy because he's still so fast in a straight line, he'll do that too. So you're not going to get bonus. You're not going to get really attacking returns ever. But yeah, again, City, you look at their first 6, I think 4 is very safe. 4 clean seems very safe to me, but they have upside of 6.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think another thing with Walker and with Perisic, something that to consider is, we haven't really had someone like Pereira at Fulham, right? He's a 4 or 5 cam, he's not a DM. Yeah. And, he's obviously not going to have 12 attacking returns throughout the course of the season, but he could get 5 or 6, very reasonably. And having him coming in isn't the worst thing in the world, just in general. It's not like you're just auto 1 or 2 pointer from that spot. And even if you're setting your team up where you have Nico, right? Those kind of picks coming in for Walker, if, he does miss 1 or 2 of those opening fixture games and we're okay, we're wrong. He's just playing Stones at right back, or he's doing 3 at the back. It's fucking insane. It's okay, obviously it sucks to miss on that because the alternative is well, maybe you did get Laporte and you're just getting these clean sheets and Walker's not playing. But I think that's kind of more of a low risk. I feel like this is a good place to kind of put some risk on that, hoping that he just plays for the first handful of games until we wild card, and then they have a fixture pile up, and we know he's a really bad pick when they have 2 games a week. He's just not a pick. He's awful. Yeah, I think Walker is just an outstanding option right now. All things considered.
He basically, for the last more than a few, but basically his entire career at City is played when he's fit, and he almost never subs on. I mean, he played in 20 games last season. He started 20 games last season. If he's good to go, Pep runs him out there. His minutes per appearance last season, per match played rather, was 88.
Yeah.
Like he just fucking plays the game that he's fit. And as far as we know right now, he's fit. There's a game a week. It seems I like it. And in terms of like third City spot, I think a lot of people are playing with Mahrez, Foden, whatever. We'll get to those guys. If you save a mil from Laporte Diash and go Walker, I think that's a great pick.
Yeah. That's where I've come down on. So some other fives. I mean, I think the Villa guys, right? We touched on a little bit with Dean and Cash are definitely. They also put Diego Carlos in at 5, which kind of makes him a non-option with the fullbacks, I think. But interesting. Really interesting. I think that the game week 5 to 7 run is really off-putting to me, just because those are just kind of like 3 sort of automatic non-cleans. So, and home West Ham also in game week 4 is a really tough one to keep it clean. I think when with West Ham liking a counter and they're playing one game, right? So it just puts a lot of stress, I think, on keeping cleans early in the at Bournemouth, home Everton, at Palace, and at Bournemouth is. Game week one is the worst time to go to one of the relegated teams.
By far.
By far. And that's tough. And at Palace also, I mean, we never got kept. That's just a bad fixture.
Really bad fixture, yeah.
I think the opening fixtures, while you have some green over there on the side on the player, are kind of really bad. So I feel like these are just sort of picks that you want to allow time to see how these new fixtures these new players bet in for Villa, and I'm sort of really uninterested. And I'm really surprised that Cash is in 20% of the teams. I guess people are just kind of sorting by last season's points, and they're like, oh wow, 140. You're right, but what are you seeing? Are you seeing anything different there with the Villa picks?
No, I think I'm similar. And Tio's question was, is there anything that would make you lean either way in Cash versus Dean? Which I do think is an interesting sort of debate to look at each player. They're very different in a lot of ways, but I'm more on your side where I'm trying to think short term. I think a lot of like meaning you and me, mental energy has been spent on like long term picks, right? Like we're both like Solanke, Trips, like Dean Cash, like these guys who are just like good long term. You start them every week, whatever. But for the first period of this season, we should not think long term at all. And I'm more with you in terms of the clean sheets. Even though they got so much better defensively, it's like, game week 5, game week 6. Barely a shout at a clean, really. At Arsenal home City, there's basically none. So I'm just echoing everything you said. I mean, it's tough in those first 4. You need to hit those, or like you basically made a bad pick.
I mean, and I think that it's useful to think in those long-term ways that we are, just as like how we see the player, but. Like you mentioned, the short-term aspect of all these wild cards this season has to be taken into account. So, these are kind of picks that I imagine we'll back into as the season progresses, knowing okay, well, even though they have no points so far and they've price dropped, this is the section that we're going to just buy them. We like the underlyings. We think that they're going to keep cleans and that kind of thing. So that'll be one for the future. Yeah, I mean,
we need a way of sort of remembering to table these players for later, right? Because then Villa have a pretty nice runs, as of now, it looks nice starting game week 8, that's our first wildcard is going to be spent by then, right? Almost definitely. Right. I could definitely see a world where it's Dean's taking every corner like we thought. He's down to 4-8. Villa's underlying defensive numbers are still good. This is when you want Dean. But I think to start in game week 1, I just don't love it.
Yeah. I think Azpilicueta is a little bit interesting. He's $5 million. I
thought he was leaving. I guess Barcelona is just a rumor everywhere.
Yeah, I think he re-signed for the. I think
really?
I think he re-signed for 1 year. I'm not sure.
Okay. I missed that.
But I think just to remember his name, because if he's fit, which it looks like he is. They are short numbers, and he could just play a lot, especially if Thiago Silva gets injured or something. I mean, he's there, at $5 million. I don't think he's a good game week 1 pick, but just someone to remember.
Yeah, I mean Chelsea. It's like every time we pod about Chelsea, I think we're always like, yeah, well, we'll see what they do, and then like the next day they sign Koulibaly, and we're like, oh yeah. I mean, they're still in for like Koundé, and they're in for someone else, and we just like. Asheville might not even have a fucking spot.
Yeah. Anything else in the 5? I mean, I think we could, there are some outliers, right? Like Leeds got some, like the right back who scored all those goals for Leipzig or whatever. And like, I think maybe we could talk about them more because they have more 4 or 5 options for next week's pod.
They have such a good fixture run, which is really weird because they might be one of the 3 worst teams in the league and get relegated, but their run is so good. So for short term, I keep finding myself like going Leedsy, but then not that. In terms of other guys, I mean, it's really unlucky that Cresswell starts with home Man City, but I don't want to forget about him that much with the next 3 being at Forest, home, Brighton, at Villa. He's still a free kick god. He's still on corners. Once they're playing once a week, they got a Garrett in. Like they're gonna be like pretty decent. And then the other 2 guys I just wanted to mention is obviously Cucurella might go to City and just like break the game, and Zinchenko might go to Arsenal. Tierney can just fuck off. I hate him. He's so annoying. And Zinchenko could just start every game at left back and just be like a pretty fucking good option. So we'll see.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Cresswell, the one thing with Cresswell that just like is a little bit annoying is he's not on like all the set pieces anymore like he used to be.
Yeah, I guess Bowen takes some stuff now.
Yeah, so I mean, keeping like having the 11 assists, like spiking those big. It's hard to see that happening, but yeah, okay. All right, let's move on to mid. So midfield, we're doing 7 million to 8.5 million. I mean, the only 8.5 is Bowen, and I think that's a good place to start. I mean, he. We have touched on him a little bit in the preseason pods, but, how are you viewing Bowen as you've been kind of tinkering and looking at other teams? I mean, do you think he's like obvious, not just a terrible pick,
it's really
somewhere in
hard,
between?
Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, so the Bowen questions we got were just Tio, Mark, Jack all asking about Bowen. Is he being overlooked? Pre-Europe, he could be fantastic. Price nicely to jump on, like blah, 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 blah. But the main thing for me, again, readjusting my thinking to more short term is just like, the fixtures are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Attacking fixtures, like these are bad fixtures. I don't want a part of them. First 5, first 6. So for that reason, I'm just like not that interested. It feels like a low ceiling play. Feels like I'm sort of, like I'm missing out on some of the 8 million guys with really good fixtures, which we'll definitely get to. Just don't love it. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that's fair. I still think that Bowen is hard to evaluate from like the fixture standpoint because he does do so much of his damage on those counterattacks. Yeah. So just because they might have less volume of attacking actions in the games, I don't know if that necessarily means Bowen is like that much worse because, when it is 2-on-2 and that even though that only happens like 3 times, that. But I mean, I think, it is still a risk just because he's on West Ham. I mean, when we have these 8 million picks on like Mount on Chelsea, where they're going to have 70% of the ball in these games, 65% of them, we have Luis Diaz, you have these City punts who could just explode with Morris Foden, right? Yeah. It's just hard to choose him over them, I think is the biggest concern, even though, he hit over 200 points last year. We did express our concerns about the 17 assists not being sustainable.
I mean, the thing is, like, one of the things I like using Understat for is like you can just straight up sort by their shots for like their whole career of data, or sort by their non-penalty XG, which is what I'm doing for their whole career. And so it's like, yes, you see, there's a Chelsea in there. I'm sorting by non-penalty XG. Chelsea's 5th on the list. Man City's 10th on the list. Like that goes in line with what we're saying, right? But then the other teams on the list are Norwich, Villa when they were really bad, Leeds, fucking Norwich again, West Brom, Leicester, so it's like, they could score 2 against Man City. They've literally done it. They did it not that long ago. It was in, May of last season. But they could also just score 0. So that's the big difference between West Ham having a good fixture and a bad fixture is that, like, yes, they're capable of countering against the good teams, but against the bad teams who still probably don't respect them. Like, I feel like a bad team rolls up to West Ham and they're like, we could get a point. I don't think a bad team rolls up to West Ham and is like, we have to concede all possession. This team is fucking Antonio's too lethal. You know what I mean? So they
West Ham does it for them, but
yeah, exactly. But they still get counter opportunities against the bad teams, and that's like why they're good.
Yeah, I just feel like I agree with you. I think he's just not going to make the cut for a lot of teams, rightfully so. Yeah. And we might look at them and say, "Oh, that was a mistake. That was obvious." Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course. Like, well, what did we? Well, okay, yeah, they looked hard, but I mean, Forest, like Brighton, Villa, like whatever. Like this is West Ham.
Not that bad. Yeah.
European monsters, Western Ham, like
the dildo brothers at work. But yeah, you look at game week 7, right? Again, like probably we will have wild carded or be on wild card at that point. They're home Newcastle at Everton, home Wolves, home Fulham at Southampton.
Maybe price drop to 8-2. You're like, okay, I'll pop on him for this spot.
Fucking Hall territory right there. So
so all right, Bowen's tricky. I mean, there are just a lot of 8 million mids, and from the strategy of game setup standpoint, I'm seeing a lot of teams getting 2 of these guys just because they like the idea of having 2 of these somewhat good picks.
I
and
have
then
2 in my latest tinker, but yeah.
So what do you got? What are you seeing here in the other 8 millions?
I mean, I have Diaz. I've had him for weeks. I mean, we didn't even get a question on Diaz. I feel like that's how secure he is in people's teams right now.
Yeah.
So unless
I went back to him also.
Yeah, unless something changes or he stops starting in preseason, whatever, probably everyone's going to have him and should have him. The other guy that I'm on is Kulu, which I think is a really interesting place to go.
That's surprising.
Because,
okay, let's hear
it. I feel like no one's on him. We got a couple questions there. Beletico said, so for real, though, why not Kulu? And Bill said, Kulu's nailed game week 1, Richarlison suspended. And hopefully it doesn't get rotated too much after that. His points per minutes and eye tests are amazing and an improving Conte side. Why isn't he a popular pick for the early game weeks? And, again, it's fucking
How
July.
did you do the mental gymnastics to convince yourself to put him in your team is what I want to hear.
The mental gymnastics to convince myself to put in my team was I just can't make a team with Son or Kane that I like. I just cannot do it. I tried, including the fact that I'm keeping Mo and Holland. I just couldn't get there. I tried a lot, and it just felt like there's too many punts in this team. It's too bad. Money spread too thin. I'm not captaining these players. It's just bad. And then, I came back around to Kulu, and, part of it was definitely listening to Double Pivot Pod, just be like, Richarlison's the 4th best attacker on this team. It's not even remotely close. And, I agree. Richarlison to me is he can play some of Son's minutes. He can play some of Kane's minutes. He can kind of play any of those positions, but that's what he's bought for is be a versatile backup who does a lot of defensive work and that kind of shit. And I look at the team and how much they were fucking humming at the end of last season. I'm like, he's not breaking that up. Early season, less rotation, 1 game a week, whatever. That's his best front 3. No fucking question in my mind that Kulu is part of the best front 3. And, I just, again, their fixtures play a huge part because I'm thinking short term. First 6, they have home Southampton, they have home Wolves, they have at Forest, they have home Fulham. Those are 4 of their first 6. It's just really, really good. So that's kind of what I was looking at. And I think, again, like the Bill said, there's not really anything bad you can say about Kulu. He overperformed a bit last year. I don't expect him to be that high, but his underlyings are still incredible. His eye test is still incredible. He's young. He's only getting better, I think, at this point is pretty safe to say. So, they're just the 3rd best team in the league in my mind. Getting a piece of that, not as a coverage pick, just getting a piece of that because I think they're going to score a lot of goals seems good to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think those are interesting points. I just still look at him compared to the other players there and think that he's going to get subbed every game. Sure, he's going to probably start them all, but, you have a 75-minute game from this guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't get a lot of really good goal-scoring opportunities, as we've talked about. Is very reliant on open play assists, really bad on bonus points. Granted, he's passing to Son and Kane, who are 2 great players, for those finishes, which, speaks to why he did and probably will continue to overperform the underlying assist metrics. But, I just still don't love him as an option. I agree with everything you're saying. He's best 11 for sure. I just for an FPL pick, I don't know. He doesn't have set pieces. He just doesn't have a lot of those kind of free avenues to points with, a lot of concerns. I just have a lot of concerns there. Is he going to keep top binning, scoring, he had 5 goals last year. I think 3 of them were worldies. he's an incredible player.
Right.
But, how, he's not going to get those free goals that you just need to continue to tick along. And
yeah, I guess it's just a matter of okay, Do I think this team's going to get like 3 cleans and score? Like, I really see those first 6, and I'm like, they're going to score 3+ in 3 of these.
It's fair. That's fair.
You know,
no,
and
that's a fair gamble to take.
You know, so versus, I'm like, does that mean 1 goal, 3 assists in the first 6, and 3 cleans on top of that? Like, that's good enough.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be good. Really good.
Yeah, and I mean, this might be a good one where you're looking more at this short-term window.
Yeah.
You know, and thinking like, okay, well, even if he does play 77 minutes and get subbed in all these games, you know, there's still enough time for him to bang some shit in open play because the fixtures are good enough.
Yeah.
Which,
and,
yeah,
know,
I like that. I like that.
I could see it absolutely. Once Europe starts, he just becomes even less of an option.
Yeah, he's just a terrible.
He plays max 60 when he starts, and he doesn't start every game. Plays 30 in the others. Yeah. You know, it's just bad. But
yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, looking at City, let's transition over there with Mars and Foden both at 8 million. I mean, the last time we talked, Sterling wasn't gone, you know, but, you know, we have to look at the City squad right now and just see like, okay, well, they're kind of like bereft of options. You know, they're really thin now. And, you know, you have Haaland up top, you have Alvarez, who's kind of the wild card, but, you know, it looks very much like, you know, 2 from 3 of Jack, Foden, and Mahrez are going to be playing on those wing spots. Yeah. Pretty much that's the stable, you know, and Foden sort of backs up.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think the interesting thing about it is, you know, Foden plays all 3 of the front 3 positions. Mahrez plays 1 and Jack plays 1. So, you know, who's going to get the starts early doors? We just don't know. And that's a thing that's problematic. But I'm more interested in Foden, just knowing that he does play across the front 3 and he offers something. Like, Mahrez is just an attack only winger, and like they have to make sacrifices across the way that they play and approach those games, and they have easy fixtures to begin with, so that could not matter much. But Foden just does a little bit of everything and does it very well. I just don't know where the point, I mean, if the points are going to significantly improve. I mean, because we just see him flash chances wide for fucking fun.
That's his favorite thing to do, is a shot across his body wide. Yeah.
I mean, are you interested? I mean, and Jack, you know, at 7 is more priced to buy, but has a lot more question marks probably than Mahrez or Foden in this team. But what do you see in the City picks here?
Let me run through some questions for starters. Canada Brad, Josh D. Silva all asking about new contract Mahrez. Bear saying, if we can't get to Haaland, who's the best City mid that isn't Kev? And Swarley asking about, you know, for you, during the postmortem pod, we heard Walsh mention second season Jack. He's coming at 7 million, but I feel like almost no one is really considering. Why do you think that is? And then the other thing I wanted to say before we like really dive in is like, we're still going to get more preseason games, and most importantly, we're getting a community shield. Very intrigued to see who starts in that game. You know, like that might mean nothing, but it might mean a lot. You know, if we just see a front 3 that works really well, maybe the front 3 that we think it's going to be, you know, that's good. I wonder if, like, somewhere in the back of my head, I wonder if Mahrez plays the games when Haaland doesn't. When they need someone to pick up the slack in terms of shots and goal scoring, the only guy in their entire team, except for maybe the wild card of Alvarez, who gets a lot of shots and a lot of goals and plays up top, is Mahrez. Yep. Like, he doesn't play in the middle, but he does the same thing wide.
He doesn't pass.
And I feel like the team that facilitates Haaland more is, you know, probably Jack and Foden, you know, alongside him. And that just is like a really complete, really good team, as long as Haaland's banging them in, which we all expect him to do. So, you know, I think they're all really interesting. You know, it's not a good answer. It's not what people want to hear. They want to hear who's the best one, who's the one I should get. But I don't have that answer right now. I mean, I think that community shield and more time and how they're training, and like almost more importantly, like what the partnerships are, is like who's playing with Haaland in the training games, because that's probably the front 3s that's going to start the majority of the games, because we think Haaland will start the majority of the games. So yeah, I'm interested in all of them, but I also haven't gone near any of them.
I mean, this is one where we're going to have probably like 2 of these 3 players in our team at some point during the season, as we fucking fuck
even when
City
they're
players
bad
in and
picks,
out.
I have them. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's more to, you know, the third City spot and, you know, where you land. Like, I just feel like Walker is like the opposite of these players right now, where it's like, I know he's going to be bad, but I know he's going to be good now.
Yes.
These players are like, I don't know which one of these are going to be good right now, but I know some of them will be good in like game week 5.
All 3 of these are massive funds.
Yes, absolutely agree with that. I think
massive punts.
Yeah, and I think Foden is the least of the punt of these three because he has proven for a long time to be in Pep's best 11, and they're just purging his competition. But, you know, Grealish is still extremely interesting to me because I think getting rid of Raz does say so much to all of us, I think, for what the plan is here, because Raz played exclusively 100% of his minutes really on that left wing spot, which was just blocking Jack, straight up blocking him. And, you know, we can't forget what kind of player is in there with Grealish. I mean, he was not bought for 100 million for no reason. I mean, he obviously had the huge disappointment last season, but at 7 million price to buy with not a ton of competition on that left wing spot, knowing that Foden can go over to the right and, you know, build more of like a midfield 8 that, you know, he wants to play him there. I still do think that Grealish, but it's just game week 1 is just too soon. But I think it's just one where you want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, one of the fun things to like talk about and think about is sort of like, it's almost in like accounting numbers, like almost in a baseball sort of way, but you know, people don't really talk about footy this way. Is like you need a certain number of shots and you need a certain number of guys who can facilitate the shots and create the shots and create the space and stuff. And it's like Haaland just changes everything so much for that reason, because it's just like this funnel of like 5 shots per 90 all of a sudden injected into this team. And like, yeah, that probably means less shots for Foden. You know, probably means less shots for Jack, probably means less shots for Kev, but like,
which is good.
But that also means that like Jack can play because they don't need 10 goals from him.
Right.
When they're playing without a number 9, they kind of need Raz's goals. They need Mahrez's goals. They need Foden to chip in with 10 goals. They need Kev to score goals. If Haaland just fucking donging his life away, then like you can carry a Jack a lot easier. So
yeah, I mean the assist numbers that Jack could put up is 20. You know, I mean, if he's playing 2,500 minutes, he is that elite of a chance creator.
Absolutely.
So we'll see with that one. But
the only guy ahead of him in City last season was Kev. Yeah. You know, in terms of chance creation, and in open play, Jack created more.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's exciting because I do think that there's some, I didn't think of that, but I like what you're thinking about Haaland and Mahrez, about how that coexistence might be very difficult.
Yeah.
And, you know, Foden, you know, listen, he shot a lot last year, and maybe that's just not who he is. You know, I mean, maybe you don't want him to shoot because he fucking misses all the time. I mean, he put up 9 goals last year. He played a lot of games like in that, like you should be scoring goal position.
I know.
He just like really didn't.
It's like, it's weird to say this for a player who plays for fucking the England national team. He's played, you know, 4,000 minutes. We've all seen him play in the Premier League. I still feel like I have no idea what he is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Pep might just be like, he's a future 8. You just don't even know it yet because he does this and this in training. I just don't have room for that in my team. And I'd be like, sure, you know, but I really just don't know. Yeah, maybe he shot 2.5 times per 90 last season. Maybe he should be shooting way less than that and just using his left foot to pass. And like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and he's still extremely young. You know, I mean, we
extremely young and extremely talented.
Know the things that he's really good at. We just, you know, he just also gets moved around a lot, so it's difficult too to peg him as one thing.
Yeah.
But all right, so and I mean the Mahrez, honestly, I just don't get it. I really don't get it.
It's just because it's the same thing as what you were saying with Jack. I mean, it's who was his competition on the right side? You know, Foden, Jesus is gone, Raz is gone. Foden, I
think Foden's gonna play a lot.
I feel like he's barely played on the right in the past.
He has, but that's because
for sure. But I'm just saying that's like the argument for Mahrez is that like right now he's the guy who's established on the right side and no one else is, except for like Bill, I guess would say, has probably played the most on the right out of this team. So, you know, I get it, but it's still fucking Mahrez. You know, he's still just not going to play for 3 games in a row out of nowhere. And then he's going to start for 3 games and everyone's going to get him. And yeah, I don't know. It's very punty. Very punty.
So that's an expensive punt. 8 million is an expensive punt.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So what about, you know, we have Saka, who's kind of fallen away now that Jesus is just the best player in the world. Mount, you know, I mean, Mount's 8, Matto's 8. I mean, these are still really good,
really
safe,
good,
steady hand options, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Mount is another one where like role and position will be really interesting. I think that he establishes himself as like a legitimately elite front three player last season. And so if it were me, I'd be like, yeah, he has to play in the front three. He's too good to not. But I've been burned many times in the last 10 years, and I will continue to be burned by assuming that what I think is the best thing to do is what the manager's going to do. Not just Tuchel, by the way, every manager in the world. So like you should never make that assumption, because Mount could just play midfield and not be an option at all. But yeah, I mean, in my head, I'm like, Kai, Mount, and Raz is like a really, really good front three. And if that's the case and Mount's starting there every week, then he's a fucking amazing pick. Absolutely amazing pick. And so is Raz, by the way. If he's just starting in the front three every week, he's going to score 20 goals. So that's another thing. But yeah, I think Leicester's interesting. I mean, Juho said Matto, last year he was the second highest point scorer of the current mid-price mids with 181, 25 points behind Bowen, a point ahead of Saka with 500 minutes less played than the both due to the barrage and Europa and injuries. He's currently only in 6% of teams, no Europe to worry about for Leicester this year. Should be a fantastic asset if he stays fit. Is Matto the solution to last week's Vardy versus Haaland debates? Where are you at on Matto?
Good pick. I mean, he's so unexciting to me, and I still don't like him very much. I mean, he has home Brentford, at Arsenal, home Southampton, at Chelsea, home Man United, first 5. It's okay.
It's like one really good fixture, one okay fixture, and
at Arsenal might not be terrible, but I still look at him compared to like Mount or Saka, and I don't think that's close. Like, I don't know how you're doing these calculations and coming up with Maddison as the answer.
Right.
You know, that's the fixtures, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, the fixtures would have been the reason, right? Like,
and he's the worst fixtures by. It's just the worst.
If Leicester had good fixtures, Vardy would be shoehorned in my team, probably 100%. Yeah. But like thinking more in the short term, I'm like, Vardy has one fixture where I'm really excited about, where I'm really like, okay, home Southampton, he could fucking explode game week 3. Yeah. The other ones, I'm like, you know, like obviously Vardy's a great player, Matto's a good player, he could score, whatever, but like it's not like good. So that's kind of where I'm at on them. But yeah, I mean, there's also a world where Matto just like maybe took a large leap forward last season. You know, his XG per 90, all that stuff is way up. His shots were relatively equal, but the distance and the XG of the shot, way up. You know, so maybe he's just developing into, you know, a better scorer, and he's going to score 15, and I could see that, but I'll just get him when he has good fixtures, probably.
Yeah. I mean, and it is like we've been waiting for Matto to take a step forward for years. And, you know, maybe, you know, Leicester with Braj always is going to be, you know, for me personally, like one of the most difficult teams to assess, just because he doesn't change personnel. So he changes personnel a lot, which like, okay, whatever. But he changes like system and formation seemingly every game to me. And so like I'm not smart enough to know like, okay, well, when they play in this way, Maddison's like, and with KDH doing these things and Maddison does these things, or like, well, when Barnes is out, then Maddison does this, but when Barnes is in and Maddison's in and they're playing 2 up top, then he does this. Like, all I know is Maddison sometimes is playing really far forward and sometimes he's shackled and not getting in the box at all.
Sometimes he's just doing Cruyff turns on the halfway line, and sometimes he's like literally striker.
Like sometimes he's doing that and spraying the ball to the fullback, and sometimes he's literally striker. And maybe he just was doing that more last year, and I don't know. I have no fucking idea. But
the really bottom line, though, is still just the fixtures. You compare them to Arsenal, ridiculous. Compared to the Spurs, ridiculous. Compared to the Chelsea, ridiculous. And those teams are also more sure things by a lot, you know? So that's
still a good pick, you know, and you know, some people just love him. Like maybe some people jumped on him last year and he was a fucking hero for them. God. They're like, you know, Matto, he's only 8. Like, he's just been great. He's going to keep being great. I could see that for sure. You just go get him. He's your guy. Go get him. He's a good pick. But I just, in comparison, he just seems to have a lot more question marks and risk to me than some of these other options.
Maybe.
I mean,
there's just some other guys there, but one of the ones we got questions on was Mukizi asked about Coutinho. He said, where do you rank Coutinho compared to the 8 mil guys? 1 extra million can go a long way in defense, which is obviously true. Very 1 mil, game week 1, big deal. Villa, pretty fucking solid attacking fixtures, first 4, or maybe first 3, but first at least the first two are really good. we can say that definitively. The game week 3 and game week 4 are a little trickier, but at Bournemouth, home Everton. I just find Coutinho extremely difficult to evaluate in this moment because he ended the season playing central midfielder with no shots and no attacking returns and just
not even close.
Not even close. FPL nightmare. But when he got there, he kind of reminded us that like, oh yeah, he's still just like a top quality player. And I still believe that to be his level. So it's sort of a matter of like, does Kamara and the assurance in the defense and Carlos push him forward into sort of like in the hole or maybe even in the front three to the point where we see him where he was when he first got there and he's just taking 4 shots per game and double returns and triple returns? Or is he going to be more link up, like whatever? So I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is balance in the midfield three of, if it's Ramsey, Kamara, and McGinn, that should be enough steel to allow Coutinho to not have to drop in and make up numbers in midfield in my head.
Go back to left wing.
Yeah, go back to left wing and just stay up there and, beat people and do all the things and be a late runner and find space and do all the things he's really great at.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a really bad gamble with those first 2 opening fixtures to take and find out because, you might spike one in one of those 2 games there. 7 is a good price for him. I kind of like it. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it, and knowing that we're going to be wild carding early or whatever, and that could be a spot like that free spot where you're like, okay, I'm going to just give him these 2 games and see, and then maybe that's a spot I use a transfer on early, which is fine to do. When we start off with like a lot of the template is a lot of really good picks, right? So he could be a good one just to jam in there and more of a little bit of a wait and see after those first 2, but, just hope to spike something, which I like, and another reason why, he does look good in that spot is there's just not that many other options, knowing like, we know what Wilf is, but, our first fixtures are diabolical. I mean, we have Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, City, I mean,
his points were so dependent on pens, which is hard. Yeah. And
which is hard in the short
Sancho's
term.
Interesting, but he's a fucking punt, obviously.
Yeah. With Rash, looking like a similar pick at $1 million less, whatever. But, there's punts all over, and Coutinho's a punt because he could just be playing in midfield again and not shooting. And, then that's just a really bad pick. But if that happens, it probably will be less likely to happen when they're playing Bournemouth and Everton.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually like, whenever we pod, I'm live tinkering. But one of the moves that I think makes a lot of sense is like that Kulu spot, right? Like that should just be Coutinho. Like that, it's like, for 2 game weeks, give me at Bournemouth, home Everton with a week off. He'll start both for sure. They need to score goals. They need to win those games. So, right, like their ambition is to easily win those games and finish top half of the table. Like, go win them. Yeah, I mean that I love that for like a 2-week punt. At Palace have a good defense. Like that's not great.
Yeah,
and home West Ham not great.
He starts off well. You're not going to sell him ahead of the Palace. You're like, well, they're playing well. 100%. They could still score a goal or 2. I think the more to the issue with comparing him to Kulusevski is what does that $1 million do for you? Because sure, the Chelsea fixture is not great, and they are great after that. But the home Southampton game, they could score 4 or 5. Yeah. Villa still aren't like, wow, they're a good team. We don't know that. They should be a good team, but they have not shown us that. At Bournemouth, home Everton, they could still score 1 goal in either of those games and be like, oh yeah. Of course.
Right. That's
not a surprise. Yeah. So it's kind of choose your own adventure there, which narrative you need to believe a little bit more.
It gets me to like Jesus. Like it does seem to do a lot. Of course, game week 1, $1 million is a ton. Sure. Like it lets you do a lot. Maybe that'll get me Perisic or something like that. But worth thinking about.
Interesting. Yeah. And then Barnes, we didn't touch on him really, but I mean, he has so much in there, but he did low-key finish up with 18 attacking returns last year, which is actually a fucking shit ton. He's still a really good player. It's just more, I think, where is he going to play? Is he going to play? Is he in the first 11? We don't know the answer to any of these questions.
Yeah. The barrage just holds him back so much.
Yeah. Like
he should obviously start every game at left wing. It's like so far from a question, but Broad just fucking psycho. Yeah, I think to fucking everyone. But he's great. But I just don't have faith.
Yeah. So basically, ton of picks in this region.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a ton, and we didn't even talk about Diaz. I don't think we need to, especially with Jota out now, it just makes it seem even more obvious to just, with all of these really good attacking fixtures initially.
I mean, he's the second highest owned mid in the game right now, Diaz.
Yeah. So, good pick there. I think it is more of, you're freed up to explore in this region if you are just, okay, I'm going to just get a second Liverpool defender with Trent instead of Diaz. You get to pick one here. Maybe you're picking two, just there are a lot of good options. Which ones which ones spike early on, who knows? It could be any.
It's kind of funny that the second highest mid in this price bracket is Coutinho.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because auto pick, how auto pick kind of likes this number
just,
and they haven't tinkered him out. Or
Villa's a big club, they all own him or whatever. But kind of interesting.
Right. Yeah, interesting. And then let's move over to forwards. I mean, this is a long one, but
it's always long.
we don't have a ton of forward.
There's not
picks
that many
to
forwards.
There's kind of is, but we'll get through it.
I mean,
I guess Jesus.
Let's just start with Jesus. He's fucking, what's he at now? He's at 59.1% owned.
Yeah.
Vaxa, Jesus' ownership is stupid high. Do you think he's the highest scoring forward, 8 million and below for the first 4, or are you seeing other strong options?
I mean, he's a really good option. They have at Palace, home Leicester, at Bournemouth, home Fulham. Those are 2.5 really good ones. I think it's just, he's eye test, good player, banging them in, kind of sounding like he's going to be able, he wants to take on more responsibility, has a good understanding with Martinelli on the left. It's, it's difficult to know how much of a shackling Pepinho has done to him over the last few years and what is in our minds, since he's come over, right? Where, he's asked to just play right wing. Like he's asked to do more work rate and less goal scoring things. He might just be a fucking god. Yeah. I mean, he's been scoring a ton of goals in 2,000 minutes. Like throw an extra 1,000 and an extra responsibility on his shoulders.
Extra shot per 90. It's like, holy fuck.
Maybe that is just, okay, he is an obvious pick and the ownership is reflecting that. Yeah, which is fair. I mean, he's scoring in preseason, looks good. He's 8 million is not a lot, right?
He's one of the guys with the stupid. I agree, it's stupid, but he's one of the guys with the stupid high ownership that I think is valid. He just he ticks every fucking box.
Except for Pens.
Except for Pens, but he's played in the league. He's good. He's good eye test. Arteta's worked with him. Good team. Good fixtures. It's just Yeah.
I don't think we need to beat a dead horse too much. He's just a good pick. He's just a really good pick to start with. Don't have hard fixtures initially. Gelling well early in preseason. Knows the league. Knows some of his teammates already from the It's just he's got a lot going. So 8 million does look good there.
Yeah.
What do you think about DCL? He's 8 million. I mean, we have Kai also at 8 million. I don't think we need to touch too much on Werner. He looks very much like the outside looking in now. But, are you interested in either of those names?
I'm very uninterested in DCL until they show me something. I mean, it doesn't help that they start with Chelsea and then at Villa. I mean, at my prior for this Everton team is they're one of the worst teams in the league. And they have one of the worst managers in the league. And, the only good thing that happened under Lampard was they got tighter defensively. They did not get better going forward at all.
Yeah. I do want to say though about that. Right. That is not who this manager is though. That could have been a needs must. We're in the scrap and we need to just try and get a few points and draws on the board.
Absolutely. Or it's an Eddie Howe thing and he's actually learned because, the way he was managing before was bad. But either way, they also lost Richarlison. They have not replaced him. It seems like they are too far in the red to even spend any of the money that they got from Richarlison, even though the fee was ridiculous. So they're weaker attacking, than they were last season. I like the player, but at that price, am I going to buy, a bottom 4 team with a bottom 4 attack? No.
Yeah.
It's just not. There's no Jesus ticks every box. DCL ticks none, except for the fact that I like him.
Yeah, I think it's more you have to be more imaginative here. I mean, if you're starting with him, I think it's a step too far. But I don't think It's too punty, but I don't think it's something that we can completely throw away. Like he's a non-option because he's $8 million, because I've always thought that he's a better FPL pick when Rich didn't play. You know, I mean, when we saw him be FPL gold, it was for those handful of months when they had wingers and they funneled everything to his head, to his feet, as kind of with relying on his movement and his size in the box. And, you know, putting Gray and Gordon wide, you know, does do that to me in my head. And Rich just is a fucking annoying piece of shit. And he would just do dumb shit all the time, keeping the ball, not passing when he should pass, you know, just passing when he should shoot, just doing all the taking up space, coming, his movement, he's anti-movement. And DCL is just, you know, I can see that working. Where it gets tricky is he's 8 million. When you look at, you know, if he's good, then one of the wingers is going to be good, right? Gordon's going to be good, or Gray's going to be good, kind of. And at 5'5", you know, maybe that's
or something.
Or a fullback's good, you know. So, you know, he does have pens, which is nice, but we have to see something from the Everton team, you know, before you go there. When, you know, I think the other, you know, obvious comparison to me, you know, mentioning bad teams is Leeds, but Leeds do, and they have Bamford, you know, but Bamford was good for a lot. He's good. He's just so much better than DCL. It's not even a comparison
all
to me.
Around, more all around.
As an all-around player, he's an all-trick pony. DCL is kind of a 1-2 trick pony, header, movement. You know, Bamford's got it all. And, you know, Marsh is just attack. They have really good fixtures. I mean, Bamford, I think at 7.5 is someone that, you know,
the big difference.
Interesting. Yeah.
Way better fixtures, and 0.5 cheaper. Huge. That's fucking huge. Like, early season, that's big. I think Bamford is also a punt because, again, you know, no Rich, no Calvin, new managers, like relatively new manager, whatever. They're still, you know, they might just be fucking awful. The thing that I said to you about Leeds, and I really believe this to be true, and I think the numbers support what I'm saying, is that no matter how bad Leeds are, we don't really care how bad they are because their attack still overperforms at such a ridiculous rate that for fantasy, they're still sort of underpriced. And I feel like that's a hard thing for people to wrap their head around, right? But they were probably one of the 3 worst teams in the league last year. Like, they kind of got away with it. And despite that, they were a top 10 attack.
Yeah, it's hard to separate
without
league
Bamford.
Position. Yeah, without Bamford. It's hard to separate for us league position and league table to like just one facet of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like we always had to do that with Burnley and their defense, for example, right? In seasons
that's
past.
such a good comp. Burnley defense, Leeds attack, great comp.
Yeah. And, you know, 7.5, you know, it does come back to, well, you're like DCL, well, you're paying you're buying the most expensive kind of pick, but you know, he's that for a reason because he could be really good again. You know, I mean, he was in a lot of teams starting the year last year, you know, and they, you know, it's not too fair because they still had Bielsa and it was more of a known quantity coming off that year. But, you know, 7.5 is still priced to buy, still a really good pick. You know, I mean, like seeing how popular Tony is, you know, it seems like he's just he's so much worse than Bamford in every capacity to me, every shape and form to me, other than just the fitness, which, you know, game week 1, everyone's fit, you know, except for Arsenal players, but, you know, Bamford's fit right now. So, you know, 7.5 price to buy, just, I mean, I think a forgotten man, but they have a lot of pace, a lot of creators around him.
Yeah.
Good pick. Still good pick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm dipping my toe a little bit into next week's budget pod, but there's gonna be someone on Leeds. I can almost guarantee that. You know, they might be the 20th team in the league, but that doesn't mean that one of their 5s or 5.5s or 6.5s or 6.0s in midfield or something like that isn't gonna just be value because of how attacking they are. You know, once they fire Marsh, if they're that bad, they'll fire Marsh and then we'll reevaluate.
Throw it all out.
Yeah, throw it all away. But, you know, for now, and the thing with Bamford also over DCL is like Bamford has double-digit assists.
Yeah.
And DCL
the only assist he gets is rebound FPL assists. He doesn't know what an assist is.
Yeah, but literally, like in 2020-21 season where he started 32 games and scored 16 goals, he had 0 actual assists. 6
FPL assists.
Yeah, 0 assists.
That's insane. Yeah, that just shows what he is.
3,000 minutes up top and gets 0
when you
assists.
Say tip of the spear, that's what a tip of the spear is.
He is the tip of the fucking spear, yeah. So, you know, I think Bamford is worth talking about. But another guy that's good is Callum.
Yeah, absolutely.
X50 said, who's the most overlooked forward option? Why is it Callum Wilson? Tio said, following up on the question from my colleague X50, there are a lot of forwards in this price range. Wilson, Bamford, Ali, DCL, of course, Jesus, to name a few. I've only really seen Jesus in any teams. Are the other forwards being overlooked, or are there simply better options elsewhere? So in this range, I do think that tracks with the ownerships in forwards. I mean, it goes Holland 61.8, Jesus 59.1. Next forward, Sam fucking Greenwood 28.3% because he's just the 4-5 that everyone's picking for some reason.
Yeah, everyone's just in a 4-4-2.
And
it's not only that,
most owned is Taylor on running Forest because he's a 4-5.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the thing is you don't just look at what are the 4-5 forward ownership percentage altogether. That's what tells you how much, and how little,
really high.
That just shows you how many people are in a 2-up top formation, which does shoulder out some of these picks. But in terms of Callum, I think that this is another one kind of that we were talking about earlier, where long term like Cash or Dean, right? Good pick, good player, good team, good situation. Game week 1, very bad pick. He has a really good game week 1 fixture, and unless if you're like, I'm wild carding after game week 1, at Brighton, awful attacking fixture. Has been ever since Potter got there.
Yes.
Absolutely terrible fixture.
Yes.
Then he has City. Then he has at Wolves, which is very different than home Wolves. Then he has at Liverpool. You do not want that pick, period. As much as you like the player and the team and the situation, which we both do, that's not someone that you are punting on.
When you wild card in game week 6,
we'll have a different conversation.
We'll figure it out then. But game week 1, just not an option.
Unless if he absolutely fills his boots, hat tricks, home Forest, which, sure, they get a pen, whatever. But I'm looking at those first 5 game weeks, best case, 2 goals to me,
For Callum,
I mean, maybe they get a pen, maybe they get 3, but I mean, open play goals, 2 is really best case to me. And, I don't think you want to be punting on that player in your spot there. So, yeah, a little bit tough cold water for me on Callum, because I know he's picking up steam, and I know Hemdog is such a Newcastle proponent, and he's always driving that helium in our Discord, but I just think that he's a really bad pick.
The thing also with Newcastle is Eddie's done a great job. The team's way better. They're looking good. They're getting better. Blah blah blah. Their attack is still bad.
Yeah,
the attack is not what improved. The defense improved.
Yeah. The overall team performance improved.
Yeah. But
they're not like Leeds, where it's just they're jamming everyone in the final third and the other half attacking, pressing high every game maniacs.
Not the case.
Yeah, not the case. So, you don't know what the attack's going to look like coupled with the bad fixtures. It's just not for me.
Yeah. Regarding Timo/Kai, I mean, Steady Hand said, now that Sterling's there, where does he slot in? What's that going to do for minutes for Mount, Pooley, Ziyech, Havertz, and the 60 other attacking mids that the team has? I mean, do you see anything in Kai there? I mean, I agree with you that I think Timo's basically out.
No, I think Kai is just a really good IRL player, and he's just not an FPL pick until proven otherwise. I mean, we've been watching him and them enough to know that when he's playing there, it is more of that false 9 position to create space, to hold the ball up, to occupy center backs and players, not, an FPL pick right now to me.
Yeah. He's a classic guy that suffers from per 90-ism, where, I mean, he's really good. We both really rate him. He's a really good player. And you look at his per 90 stats, absolutely elite. Fucking God, everything backs up. But the problem is he plays 70 minutes a game. Yeah. So his stats get a lot worse when you do per 70, which is really when what he actually plays. Yeah. When he starts, which he doesn't even start every game. So
yeah. And then, I mean, there's Antonio, who I don't know if we need to talk about him really. And then there's no one else really, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's Ollie/Ings, which is I'd rather
just talk about.
No, I mean, with the first 2,
7 million also isn't in this region, so we're saving that one for
right. But Ollie's
7.5,
7.5, so it's mainly just the same thing as Coutinho, which for me is why we don't have to talk about. Which is just you want to get him for 2 fixtures and then swap to someone else. I don't hate it.
I hate that. I mean, I'm going to hate that just because he's a bad FPL player. Coutinho shows that when he's on, he's a fucking festival.
Yeah, I still rate him. I still rate him pretty highly. And
yeah,
I know.
I mean, I just yeah, he's just a work rate merchant. I mean, 3,000 minutes, 11 goals. Get out of here. Don't want that player.
Yeah, but 14 goals the year before, he gets assists. If the team's playing well, he could return pretty
more
well.
More expensive than Coutinho.
Yeah, that's the harder selling point. That's the harder selling point. But yeah, it's like, I could see it.
Okay.
I think that's it, really. I mean, I had some other questions, but we're already like an hour and a half long pod. I think we should just...
Yeah, I think we should.
Let me just slap some asses, and then we'll... there'll be another fireside this week. Budget pod next week. Another fireside. Then a fucking game week 1 pod. Then a Thursday game week 1 panic fucking nightmare pod. And then it's game week 1. So we're fucking there, basically.
Yeah, it's really close. Couple weeks.
Yeah, so new Patreon subscribers, Anus Slaps. We got FPL Mad, Nick, Patrick Moffett, Sachin Rajput, and Salad Fingers. Let's get in there. Good job by you. Thank you for the support. Any last words, Walshy?
Good job by you. See you next week, baby.
Good job by you. See you tomorrow. See you next week. Check us out at FMLDL.com. Follow us on Twitter.